recently I was talking to one of my students who came up to me after class one day, and that's typically when I'll just kind of answer questions with the guys and kind of hang out and bullshit. And he came up to me and he said, Chewy, I have a question. I was watching this, jiu-jitsu personality on the internet, and he was talking about this move that I like doing, that I like sort of dabbling with, or that I'm dabbling with right now. And he said that when I heard his video, he said that this is a low percentage move. It's not a very highly effective move. And so, he was asking me the question. He's like, hey, so do you think this move is low percentage? Do you think this move is effective? Should I even bother with it? And so I shared with him kind of a rule for my jiu-jitsu, and, shared a story with him, which I'll share with you guys now in case you have this question, because I know this thing comes up kind of often about high percentage versus low percentage movements and techniques, because I get questions about them, right? So back in the day, long before YouTube, long before people were like able to like download digital courses and learn all this stuff on the internet and be able to watch matches on Flow Grappling or whatever sort of streaming platforms there are, I started jiu-jitsu in 2003, right? And when I got into jiu-jitsu back then, there were several moves that were told to us to be kind of low percentage techniques, or that they were sort of very conditional techniques. You would use them against some people, but not most people. And one of those was the guillotine choke. The guillotine choke that was, and again, not everybody thought this way about the guillotine choke, but back when I started, a lot of times you would hear coaches talk about the guillotine choke as if it was a low percentage type of technique against trained grapplers, but you would use it against like wrestlers, MMA fighters who would just duck their head in, and like untrained people that would just leave their neck out, right? And you go for it. And I remember like one of my coaches, we would go to watch fights together, and some MMA fighter would be on his back with the flat on his back with the choke, and he would start extending, which again is very different to how we finish it now with the arm and the sort of the motion here, right? Be extending like this, and you'd see the head pop out, and my coach would be, see, low percentage movement. That's why I don't do it. Now, a few years later, there was like Marcelo Garcia was guillotining people like crazy. There was others too, myriad of others. And then there were guys like in MMA, like Joe Stevenson, who developed a really nasty guillotine choke and finished people with it. And so it was like, maybe it's not low percentage. Maybe we just weren't doing it very effectively. Maybe it was on us, right? Maybe it was on us, both the way that we were using it, the way it had been taught before, and our skill with actually applying it, right? And there's a lot of submissions that were like this. I mean, like leg locks, a whole category of submissions were considered to be, low percentage. You don't do them against really good grapplers, or that they were a Hail Mary, or, whatever people thought about them. Obviously now we know that that's not true. They can be done with lots of control, and they can be very, very effective. Right? And so again, that's my idea. And so my rule that I shared with my student after the story was that I never really draw a line in the sand with the technique. I try to stay open to it. There are some exceptions where like someone's breaking a very fundamental rule. Like I remember one time seeing a guy where it was like a submission video where like the guy had back mount, and the guy's like defense or counter was to try to do like a toe hold from like in the defensive section of back mount. So the guy's trying to choke him, and he's going to take both of his hands to try to grab the foot and pop it. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that, because if you do that, your face is just going to get ripped, But for the most part, with most submissions, I typically am very open to them. I'm very curious as to see how they work. And, even if they're considered low percentage, I'm going to play around with them. Because again, for every submission that I've ever heard someone say is low percentage, not effective, whatever, I then have seen people on the opposite end use it very, very effectively at very high levels of jiu-jitsu. Likewise, there are lots of high percentage, quote, submissions. And when I say high percentage, I just mean submissions that, more often than not, you will see very regularly being used at high level of jiu-jitsu. You have these high percentage techniques that then don't work for everybody, or that some people don't use all the time. There's submissions I don't personally use very often, like triangle chokes. They're not bad. They're not really my favorite thing, and they don't feel too comfortable with my body frame. I know Marcelo Garcia, I felt like I heard him say that, and I could be wrong about this, but I felt like I heard him say that he doesn't use kimuras, and he doesn't use arm chokes very often, right? Something like that. Could be wrong about that. But again, if that's true, if that's what he did in fact say, well then those are very effective submissions that are high percentage for many people that he's not using for himself. Doesn't make him right or wrong, means that that's what he's using. And again, the way that I sort of think about techniques is they're like tools, right? You give a master carpenter some wood and tools to use, they're going to make you something really amazing. You give me those same resources and same tools, I'm not making you anything worthwhile, right? Again, they're just tools to be used. And again, at some point, it comes down to your skill using those tools, not necessarily the tools themselves. And so again, I never really draw a line in the sand with like high percentage versus low percentage or whatever. I try to stay open because anytime I draw a line in the sand with a technique, someone comes along and sort of proves me and lots of other people wrong. So just an idea, guys, in case you're curious about that same kind of idea, because I've gotten that kind of message of people asking a similar question to my student. And so just sharing that with you, and I'll talk to you guys next time.